I'm Reverend Bill Sinkford, and it is my privilege to be your minister in residence this year. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome everyone on this Sunday when we gather, some of us here in this sanctuary once again. Amen. Welcome those who are here in person and all those who are gathering with us online. Welcome to this diverse, spirit-growing, justice-seeking community of all souls. We begin with the words of Alice Walker. Love, if it is love, never goes away. It is embedded in us, like seams of gold in the earth, waiting for light, waiting to be struck. Come now, and let us worship. We light our chalice, the symbol of the warmth and the spirit that we nurture in this community. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love.
My life goes on in endless Good morning, everyone. Welcome to All Souls Church on a beautiful, crispy, chilly Sunday morning. Spring is coming. I welcome you to a community where our search for spirituality and our passion for justice come together, where our heads and our hearts also come together, and where our reverence for the earth and our belief in the dignity of every person inform our ethics, where music is obviously an expression of our joy, prayer is a sign of our faith, and acts of justice are a symbol of our hope. My name is Jana Owens. My pronouns are she and her, and it is my privilege to be today's worship associate. We extend a special greeting to those who may be with us for the very first time, as well as others who have been attending our weekly services. Now, for those who are in the building, if you did not pick up a paper order of service this morning, they did print some up starting now. You will see new QR codes. There's like about 4 of them on back of the queue in front of you. And the left one is to see the order of service. The middle one is for giving, and the third one is to open a web page about our bicentennial activities. So just to let you know what all of those new ones are. But if you did not get a paper order of service, you can click on that left QR code. For those who are on Zoom, look in the chat window, and you'll find a link to open the order of service. Now, our building has largely been closed during COVID, but our church programs never stopped, and the best way to know what's going on at All Souls is to read our weekly e-newsletter. If you currently do not receive it and you're on Zoom this morning, you can click on the QR code that is also in the chat window. Otherwise, you can go to our All Souls webpage and you can sign up there. So now let's take our traditional brief greeting of each other. If you're in the sanctuary, we encourage you to get up and move around, do some fist bumps, elbow bumps, bows, whatever is your comfort zone for social distancing. If you are on Zoom, go through the gallery view and scroll and wave at people. Let's take a couple of minutes and let's greet each other.
she say it? Was she trying to say something? Okay.
I don't know how my mother walked her trouble down. I don't know how my father stood his ground. I don't know how my people survived slavery. Well, I do remember that's why I believe. I don't know how the river overflows their banks. I don't know how the snow falls to cover the ground. I don't know how the hurricane sweeps through the land every now and then. Standing in a rainstorm, I believe. Head on my leg, head, amen. Head on my leg, head, amen. Head on my leg, hey, hey, amen. Head on my leg, hey, hey, amen. I don't know how the angels woke me up this morning soon. I don't know how the blood still runs through my veins. I don't know how I rise to run another day. Well, I'm still here running. I believe. Oh, head on my leg, head, hey, amen. Oh, head on my leg, head, hey, amen. Head on my leg, head, hey, amen. My God calls to me in the morning dew. The power of the universe knows my name. Gave me a song to sing and run another day. Well, I raise my voice for justice. I believe, yeah. Head on my leg, head, hey, amen. Oh,
Say, what the what? I have to follow that? Holy cow. That was unbelievable. Thank you. Hello, all souls. I am Rob Keithan, your Minister of Social Justice. I use he, him pronouns. Before I get into the announcements and concerns, and there are a few today, I want to recognize that not only do we have people in the sanctuary again, but today is the first day of indoor religious education at the church since March 2020. And I know that the staff know this and that the families in religious education know this, but I want everyone in this entire congregation to know that Dolores Miller and James Plazer have worked so very hard in the last 2 years to provide consistent and amazing programming for our children and youth. So today is a huge milestone. So even though they are hard at work right now, please join me in saying a huge thank you for Dolores and James. I think they might have heard that, if not with their ears, hopefully with their hearts and souls. And just a quick word about our return to in-person activities. All of this is a work in progress. We don't know what the future holds, except to say that it will not be exactly the same as before the pandemic. We know that some people are eager to come back in person, and we welcome you. And others still don't feel comfortable, and we welcome you. That's okay. Do whatever feels right for you, and know that there are many, many ways to be part of the All Souls community. Speaking of which, if you feel ready to officially join All Souls Church, I invite you to attend the membership session next Sunday, February 27th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. on Zoom. This session will introduce you to the meaning, privileges, and responsibilities of membership. And notably, this is the last membership class before the congregational meeting on April 3rd, when we will elect a search committee to find our next called minister or ministers. Please RSVP to membership manager Gary Penn to get the Zoom link. And also next Sunday, we will say farewell to Reverend David McMillan, who has been an active member of this congregation since 1990 as he retires to Mexico. There'll be light refreshments in Pierce Hall after the service as we say goodbye to Dave. The next event in the church's bicentennial celebration features an interfaith panel of archivists from 4 different churches in DC, highlighting some of their unique histories. Churches represent some of DC's oldest institutions. They might even be called our oldest grassroots organizations. And their archives contain treasure troves of preserved lore. That virtual program will be on Wednesday, March 2nd, from 6:30 to 7:45 p.m. You can visit the church calendar to register, and you can also buy the archive's new updated history of All Souls in the lobby or in Pierce Hall after today's service. Woohoo! And congratulations to longtime members Michonne and Tequina Boston, whose new podcast, Historical Drama with the Boston Sisters, was written up in the Washington Post this Wednesday. We will have an adult spiritual development program with them on Wednesday, March 16th. We move now to our community and congregational concerns. We start by sending condolences to David Wiley and his family following the death of his mother on February 13th after a long stretch in hospice. Our thoughts are with David, his spouse Pam, and their children Ben and Jamie in this time of grief. We grieve as well with Erin Albright on the death of her father, Admiral Eric Alton McVaden, on February 15th from progressive Parkinson's disease. Our thoughts are with Aaron, Jim, their son Eddie, and their extended family. We send healing prayers to longtime member and seminary professor Mark Hicks, who is recovering from a stroke. He is progressing well and is expected to be discharged this week. We send thoughts and prayers as well to All Souls musician and singer Gordon Kent, who remains in burn treatment at the Washington Hospital Center ICU and will have an additional surgery this week. His family is visiting regularly, and a wall of cards from All Souls has been growing. He appreciates the radio and CDs that now bring music to his room. And we send healing love to Michael Milano's spouse, Wayne, who was taken to the hospital Friday during a visit to a good friend in Florida. Michael remains here in Virginia as the situation gets more clear and is communicating via video. The hope is that Wayne will be released in a few days. In a time of great challenge, I am pleased to conclude our congregational concerns with two unmitigated joys. First, the Phillips Collection, one of DC's preeminent institutions for contemporary and modern art, is celebrating its 100-year anniversary this April. And among the 7 recipients of their gala award are Mel and Juanita Hardy for their long service in arts and community building. So let's give it up for Mel and Juanita. And each year at the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly, an award is given for distinguished service to the cause of Unitarian Universalism. It is one of the most important awards given by our faith community and honors those who have given vast quantities of their time, heart, and soul to improving Unitarian Universalism. And earlier this month, it was announced that this year's recipient is the Reverend Bill Singford. That award will be officially presented in June. In the meantime, Bill, we are grateful for all you have done in your many years of service. We appreciate your presence with us this year, and we very much look forward to having you as our interim minister starting in August. And last but not least, I'm pleased to say that the Caring Table returns to Pierce Hall this Sunday, shepherded by Marianne Anderson. So you can stop by, thank Marianne for her many months of sending cards on her own, and add your signature to some of the cards on the list. Now, in the silence that follows, please speak aloud or write in the chat the names that you carry on your heart this morning. Spirit of life and love, God of death and life, transitions and celebrations. Sometimes the best way to hold all there is to hold is with silence. So as our prayer today, let us simply hold a time of silence together. Amen.
Our reading this morning is by the Reverend Victoria Safford. It's entitled Map of the Journey in Progress. Here is where I found my voice and chose to be brave. Here's a place where I forgave someone, against my better judgment, and I survived that, and unexpectedly, amazingly, I became wiser. Here's where I was once forgiven, was ready for once in my life to receive forgiveness and to be transformed, and I survived that also. I lived to tell the tale. This is the place where I said no more loudly than I thought I ever could, and everybody stared, but I said no loudly anyway, because I knew it must be said. And those staring settled down into harmless, ineffective grumbling, and over me, they had no more power anymore. Here's a time, and here's another, when I laid down my fear and walked right on into it, right up to my neck into that roiling water. Here's where cruelty taught me something. And here's where I first was astonished by gratuitous compassion and knew it for the miracle it was, the requirement it is. It was a trembling time. And here, much later, is where I returned the blessing clumsily. It wasn't hard, but I was unaccustomed. It cycled round, and as best as I could, I sent it back on out, passed the gift along. This circular motion, around and around, has no apparent end. Here's a place, a murky puddle, where I have stumbled more than once and fallen. I don't know yet what to learn there. And on this site, I was outraged, and the rage sustains me still. It clarifies my seeing. And here's where something caught me. A warm breeze in late winter, bird song in late summer. Here's where I was told that there was something wrong with my eyes, that I see the world strangely. And here's where I said, yes, I know. I walk in beauty. Here is where I began to look with my own eyes and listen with my own ears and sing my own song, shaky as it was. And here is where, as if by surgeon's knife, my heart was opened up, and here, and here, and here, and here. These are the landmarks of conversion. Here is where my heart was opened up, and here, and here, and here. In our reading this morning, Victoria Safford offered a map of her own journey in progress. Now, this pandemic has certainly been a journey. COVID seems to be finally, receding? Is that the right language? Certainly not ending. It is clear we will be living with COVID as an endemic rather than a pandemic from now on. But the infection rates are falling sharply. Mask mandates will be ending soon here in the district. No more limits on the size of gatherings. But on this first Sunday with persons back in the sanctuary again, the sanctuary is not full. We're still tentative about being too close. It's lovely to see those of you who are here, don't get me wrong, but we've been here before, remember? And I don't think I'm the only person who approaches this time with a kind of wait and see attitude. I think we'll just have to take it step by step, understand it as a process, a journey in process, if you will, to a new normal that will emerge only with time. One of the casualties of COVID has been our sense of certainty. And there will no doubt be more way stations on this journey. Victoria Safford describes the way stations on her personal journey, her journey of faith, the times of cowardice and courage, of learning and leaving, powerlessness and the claiming of personal power. She describes a journey of the Spirit, a journey over sacred ground. Here's where I was told that something was wrong with my eyes, that I see the world strangely. And here's where I said, yes, I know. I walk in beauty. Now, each of our journeys is different, of course. And I might have said, I walk in grace, or perhaps I walk in hope. We see the truth of the world as it is, we all do, but we also hold a vision of the world and of a life that could be, a vision of hope. That's why we are here, and that is why they call what we do here faith. Welcome to this sacred space. Whether you're here in person or in the virtual space we also hold, this is a space for all souls. This is a place where so many hearts have been opened for so long. This is ground made sacred by encounter with one another, how we have missed personal touch, an encounter with what we hold holy, but also encounter with the spirit of this place, because this was sacred ground long before All Souls was built here, long before this church came to be. We recognize the First Nations peoples of this place each week, the people whose land was stolen by the European settler colonists. We recognize them, and we call that recognition a land acknowledgement. An acknowledgement. And that feels like a step in the right direction. Right relationship has to begin with the acknowledgement of the harm done. And perhaps it points to the need for repair, for reparations of some kind, though that is a fraught conversation, I know. But even reparations would still locate us spiritually in a transactional mode, still focus on the control, the ownership of the land. It locks us into the culture of commerce and somehow separates us from the spirit of the lives that have been lived on this ground, on all of this ground. It cuts us off from the meaning that has been lived here over so many years, the meaning lived by the native peoples and the enslaved peoples and the European peoples. The spirit of life moved in all of those peoples. They all knew the holy on this ground, however they encountered it and however they named it. We need to acknowledge not only the theft of this land, but remember all of the peoples who have encountered God here. Our acknowledgement needs to be a spiritual acknowledgement as well as a commercial one. Any place can be sacred ground. Moses was just taking care of business, taking his father-in-law's animals up the mountain to graze when he saw that bush burning. He turned to look and he encountered God, who spoke to him and told him to take off his sandals, take off your shoes, because you are standing on sacred ground. Any place we encounter the holy is sacred ground. It was 1997. I was living in Boston, serving on the staff of the Unitarian Universalist Association. My son Billy was 16. He had had a rough couple of years. It was clear that he needed to find a different path. My wife then and I decided that an Outward Bound program might help him find some solid ground. It had been a rough couple of years for him, and it had been a rough couple of years for me trying to parent him. It was clear to me and I think to him that my parenting had not been enough to give him the help he needed. And I knew that I had not shown up at my best each and every time. Some of you, perhaps more than a few, may remember a time like that if you're a parent. Some of you may be having a year like that this year. But we found an Outward Bound program in Pennsylvania, west of Philadelphia. It was summer, and the plan was for me to drive him there while my wife stayed at home with our daughter. I was so surprised, pleasantly so, when he asked if we could take an extra day or two and camp our way south from Boston. He'd heard about the Delaware Water Gap. We could stop there, Dad, and have some time just to ourselves. We were mostly quiet on the drive south, but the time was pleasant and, for the most part, relaxed. We camped at the Water Gap and the next morning rented a canoe and paddled the river. We realized that there was an entrance to the Appalachian Trail just outside town, and Billy talked me into hiking up to the first campsite on the trail. Though we were not well prepared for backpacking, we made it up the 3 or so miles to the campsite well before dark, had a simple meal, and bedded down for the night, and talked. As we had not been able to talk for a long time, he shared some of his fears and frustrations with me, some of his hurts and some of his hopes for the Outward Bound program and the school year ahead. And I shared my love for him and somehow began to come to terms with the reality that his path would not be the path that I had followed. It was a tender time, a tentative time, with some anger and with some tears for both of us. An open-hearted time when I think we both found some forgiveness and some grace. In the morning, we drove down to the Outward Bound site, and I began my drive back to Boston. I decided to take smaller roads north before connecting with I-84 for the run back to Boston. The roads moved over rolling hills, if any of you know that part of the country. Little traffic. It was very peaceful. And I allowed my body to do the driving and allowed my mind to revisit the time with my son. I had only one cassette in the car. Do you remember cassette tapes? One cassette, and it was Sweet Honey in the Rock. If you have only one, you can do far worse, I have to say. This was their Sacred Ground album that begins with I Remember, I Believe, the song that Rochelle and Jen and Amelia sang for us so wonderfully just a moment ago. And as I played it, I found myself hitting repeat rather than go on to the second song again and again, over and over again. I don't know how my mother walked her trouble down. I don't know how my father stood his ground. The voices and the harmonies somehow brought my parents to me, both dead, but somehow present there. And I saw their strength and their weaknesses. I remembered them with more understanding than I had ever mustered before. I don't know how my people survived slavery, and my grandmother and my great-grandmother were there too. I don't know how I rate to run another day standing in a rainstorm. I believe. I found myself confessing to myself how much I blamed myself for my son's struggles, for good reason and not so good. But it was the final stanza of the song that I waited to hear with each repetition. My God calls to me in the morning dew. The power of the universe knows my name. It gave me a song to sing and sent me on my way. I raise my voice for justice. I believe. as I let those words wash over me and through me, I felt known, my strengths and all my failings. I felt known, and despite all of my failings, still loved. I felt held in God's hands. And there was a promise, too. Not a promise of success for me as a parent or for my son, but a promise of presence. And somehow, the time with my son and the tentative forgiveness he had offered me, and the long drive alone with sweet honey guiding my spirit, somehow I let go enough to allow myself to believe that that presence would be there, could be there, whatever might come. The Spirit did not speak to me in words. That was not my experience. The promise was made with the quality of the presence. I knew somehow, driving over those rolling hills on Route 84, listening to Sweet Honey, I knew that I was traveling over sacred ground. The Psalms speak of giving thanks and praise. I was almost overcome with gratitude. Gratitude for my son, for my ancestors, for my own life. The power of the universe knows my name. She gave me a song to sing and sent me on my way. Standing in a rainstorm, I believe. Like Moses, my heart had been opened enough for me to recognize the presence of God. Toni Morrison, in her novel Beloved, writes of what she calls re-memory. History, what happened, is different from re-memory, which carries meanings. Mere history is not memory. And there's a tension between memory and memorylessness, she says. Memorylessness has no room for knowledge that this sacred ground was stolen from native peoples, no room for knowledge that descendants of those native peoples and other native peoples are present still, some of them, I would wager, here among us. Re-memory, she writes, is about recollecting, recollecting, and remembering, as in reassembling the members of the body, the family, the population of the past. My heart was broken open so that I could reassemble my life with its connection to the past, my ancestors, and the choices they had made to survive, and reassemble my life in connection to the future, my son, and how his life draws from mine, but is also very much his. Morrison talks about, I'm quoting now, the stress of remembering, its inevitability, and the chances for liberation that lie within that process. The chances for liberation. Yes. Yes. On the surface, nothing changed in my life as a result of that drive. I did not stop the car and drop to my knees in prayer. I still had hours yet to drive, and I would return to a wife and a daughter who needed braces, the student loans from seminary, and a stack of other bills, my ministry at the UUA. Nothing changed on the surface. And though you may hear that experience as mystical and mysterious, I did not give up reason or rationalism, not at all. But something happened as I drove that sacred ground. Something broke and something healed. Something so central, so connected, so deep that the only words I have ever found to describe it was that God was present to me. She made herself known to me on that sacred ground. There have been a couple of times in my life when I have felt that presence, only a few, at least with the intensity of that day. But I remember them. They are in rememory for me. And any ground can be sacred ground. Any ground where we encounter the holy, any ground where we connect or reconnect with the deepest part of each of us that yearns to believe that love is real and that hope is justified despite all of the evidence to the contrary. Any ground can be sacred ground. We come to this ground, to this sanctuary, whether we come in person or virtually. We come to this place called All Souls. We come to be opened, sometimes to be broken open, but always to have our hearts opened by the music and the words and the presence of those who gather, and the presence somehow of that which for us is holy. We come to remember what we care most about. We come to remember who we want most to be, and to reassemble our lives so that love can live within us and through us. We come yearning for wholeness on this sacred ground, and the miracle is that in the midst of a world gone so wrong, the miracle is that so often we feel that love moving within us, and here in this community called All Souls, we remember why it is that we live. Amen, and blessed be.
Good morning. I offer you a brief prayer. My name is Tracy Hughes Trotter. I'm the Executive Director of All Souls Church. I rest in you, Spirit of life, and give to you my worries, my fears, my doubts, my hopes, my joys, my pains, my anger, my love, my hate, and allow you to take in all that I am. And as I give all that I am, I find the place of truth, stillness still, eternal, where you and I are one. All Souls, there is a oneness in this place. We are reassembling online, hello, and physically here again. Why? It is because on this sacred ground there is love holding us. Ancestors are surrounding us, urging us to remember who we are and who we are to be, reminding us that we are harmonious. It is that promise of connection that we return to week after week that gives us hope. Now, in this time of offering, and to lift up our collective responsibility to the common good. We give with gladness and gratitude, not only to support the staff in the building and the many programs that All Souls offers, but because we are affirming the values of beloved community. Those of you joining virtually may click in the link on the chat. And if you're here in person, you may text ASCU to 73256 or click the fancy new QR code there in the pews, right there in the middle. If you prefer to leave cash or a check, you may leave your gift with the ushers at the door. Thank you for your generosity.
friends, our last two anthems today are about the sacred ground that music is for us. And I'm so grateful that we get to do this together again. Please rise for our closing hymn.
Yeah.
We prove that love is real by living as if it were so. We are held by that larger love, and it also is ours to make it real. This is the day we have been given. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.